you have to make decisions based on details and not people.
Right.
And I was scared about that.
Just having about, I think, 13, 14 people utilizing the international pharmacy on specialty meds was saving like $650,000 a year across the board.
When they have an advocate in their corner, it's a lot less scary.
Now that we have this data, we have all this leverage that we can use against them.
Every day is a new day,
Yeah.
and it's not what you're going to expect. And so having you guys as a partner is probably the best thing that, like, when I leave, I'm going to want to take you with me. Yay!
All right, everybody, you are in for a treat today because this is a true multi-year healthcare strategy showing the importance of long-term planning with healthcare plans. So that what you're about to listen to today is actually a case study where we invited one of our clients, the director of HR of Wynden Stark, Connie Alvarez, out to Savannah, Georgia to a conference with us where we presented the ins and outs year by year of her multi-year healthcare journey. So it started in 2021. We're actually just going through the renewal now for 2026. And we will take you through the curveballs, the highs, the lows, the financial results, the human results year by year in this conversation. Side note, this was recorded at the U-Powered Symposium. This is our team's favorite conference of the year. We actually brought out about 10 members of the Ethos team. We had 3 clients there. This is a really great conference if you're interested in learning more about all the things that we discuss in this episode with Wynden Stark. So without further ado, let's dive in, get ready for the highs, the lows, the curveballs. The great thing about this case study, I will say this, every single year savings was delivered. So tune in, listen, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think and enjoy.
5 years ago, we designed a multi-year strategy for them. And interestingly enough, we followed it to a T, and the results have been pretty incredible, which will let those results speak for themselves. So let's first hand it over to the panel. Connie, can you give us your background and tell the group a little bit about who you are?
I'm Connie Alvarez. I'm the head of HR for Wynden Stark GQR. And I started my whole career has been in HR and benefits and payroll. And I've worked in several different industries, orthodontic companies, engineering companies, law firms. And I worked for an NFL team that was quite interesting. And so just HR is HR wherever you go. I just had a really cool business card with the NFL.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to transition over to Wynden Stark here in a minute. Let's meet the rest of our panel. Patrick, can you give us a background? You have an interesting background. You're like the only person I know that actually studied health policy and got into this industry on purpose. Number one. So tell us a little bit of your background and then what you handle for the Wynden Stark plan, please.
Yeah, sure. So, like Chelsea said, a little bit weird. I studied health policy at the University of Michigan. And kind of got into that space when Obamacare was getting rolled out and all this change about healthcare, and I just kind of wanted to learn more about it, and that's what piqued my interest. So I think I was one of the very few that were in that graduating class for that. But now that kind of led me. I've worked on both the consultant side, the carrier side, and now back on the consultancy side, and working on the GQR health plan, and really focusing on like the data, the analytics, and that full kind of trajectory from like a high level view. And so it's been a wild ride, and you guys will see kind of how that process takes place.
Wild ride is an understatement. I should have said at the beginning that any weird obstacle we could have faced the last 5 years, we have, from mergers and acquisitions to really interesting competitive situations, culture considerations, legislative considerations. So we're going to go through all of those today because genuinely every curveball was thrown. Donovan, you want to introduce yourself and what you do for the plan?
Sure. Donovan Reich, CEO of Ethos Benefits and founder. Over 10 years ago, I was actually a fiduciary securities advisor. Accidentally did a healthcare plan and realized this side of the business is screwed up. So decided I would basically apply those same principles and the same legal standard that you have on the security side and try to put that to work on healthcare. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
He's also the strategist, by the way, of all of this. You're going to hear some crazy stories, and he is the guy that you, not just because he's my husband, but he's the guy that you want in your corner when shit goes south. Megan, and I'm from Canada, so I apologize in advance if I cuss. It's like totally normal up there.
So I'm Megan. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, and like most people, unlike Patrick, it happened by accident. I have a degree in English and computer science, so a weird combination, and I lasted 4 months as an English teacher, and then said, this is not the job for me, and asked my dad, hey, do you have any buddies that are looking to hire somebody? And just fell into a brokerage, and I focus mostly on the tech side and then kind of the day-to-day experiences for the employers and the employees, and then any other random ACA-related things. So that's kind of my focus. So
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into Wynden Stark. Connie, can you give the audience an overview of the size of the company, where people are located, and then maybe speak to the culture a bit, because it is unique.
It is. We have internal and external, what we call external employees. So our internal W-2s are all the people that work in finance and sales and HR and payroll and all those departments that you have that run the company. And we have 250-ish employees. And then we have external employees that are the employees that we are placing at client facilities all across the country. So from California to Florida, maybe 2,000 of them at this point. And then we have all the 1099 people as well, and there's thousands of them.
And healthcare staffing has been an interesting industry the last few years, a lot of turmoil. So something that's really interesting about the Wynden Stark plan is having the internal and external employees. The internal enrollment is pretty consistent. The external, right? Right now there's a big strike in California, so there's a ton of hiring happening, right? And then those numbers will drop. So keep that in mind as we kind of talk through some of the things today. We have fluctuating enrollment in addition to all the other
placements. The healthcare is the largest portion of our business. The healthcare staffing, so traveling nurses and traveling any kind of healthcare provider. And they're 13-week assignments. So they're coming on and coming off and coming on and coming off.
And what's our eligibility for the traveling nurses?
Day one.
Right. So there's that, right? They get hired, and Megan's like, day one's super fun for her, and Mickey and the rest of the team. Okay, tell me a little bit about your culture, because I think this is special.
Well, we have a benefits committee, and there's 4 of us on the team, and those other 46 employees also get an opinion. And they will go straight to the owner of the company to share that opinion.
When Donovan and I first started working with them about 5 years ago, we were very intrigued by, like, it didn't matter which employee it was, internal, external. If they had anything to say, the CEO was going to hear about it, and it was going. So keep that in mind as we talk about disruption and, the ideas around self-funding, right? Anything else you add? Did you say your employees are all over the country?
They are.
Okay.
California to Florida.
and Hawaii, there's a couple there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Alaska, all over.
Couple in Alaska. Yeah.
Awesome. So, Donovan, I'm going to turn it over to you because Connie unfortunately inherited Ethos. She didn't actually get to choose us because she came the year that we started, right when we started. So
During open enrollment.
During open enrollment was when she started, and she just got to work with us. But Donovan, you were really the mastermind behind that first year. So can you walk us through what the situation was when we first met Wynden?
Yeah, it was. We came in just prior to the 2021 year starting. So we were like 30, maybe 45 days out from that fully insured Blue Cross Blue Shield California plan starting. So we already knew, and when we presented to the company, it was not the idea or the proposal that we would change anything for 2021. So where they were at was in a place where they were getting kind of fed up with the premiums and a lack of understanding and a lack of options. So what we did was we presented them basically with a 5-year business plan for their healthcare plan with, the idea that 2021 was obviously not going to be that. So we talked about support and communications for the employees, and then we laid out what we were going to do in year 1 to start positioning them for 2022 and the next 5 years beyond that.
Talk about the interesting nature of the risk pool within California.
Yeah, so what we didn't know, California is a very special state. If people do non-resident work there, or if you happen to be a resident producer there, operates a lot different than any other state. It's hard to get a non-resident. You have to make a new LLC, and your LLC has to say that it's an insurance agency explicitly in the name. So even taking the AOR took like 2 months. And I was like, this is crazy. But what I came to find out, at that point in time, I think there were 400, maybe 425 insured on the plan. And we get a few months in the plan and I'm looking for, what kind of data do we have? It is fully funded. So I wasn't expecting a lot. But what I came to find out was they were in a captive within Blue Cross Blue Shield of California. And not only were they in a this trial group captive or whatever they had created, that captive was made for small employers, and their company was now the largest employer in that captive group. So when we got to Renewal, we're kind of going through this, and I'm like, I need some data, not even a single page, not even a verbal MLR, nothing. They refused. Really unusual for a group this size to have no data at all and be completely in the dark. So they're kind of explaining it. They're like, well, they're in this group captive within the state. It's really meant for small employers. We're probably going to kick them out next year, but we don't want to kick them out this year. They're going to stay this year.
Because they're helping us.
Right. So okay, read between the lines. What I hear is your captive is not running well. This very large group in the captive is running well. Therefore, you would like to hang on to them, right? So really bad place to start. I mean, you're a large employer with essentially no credit history, right? That's how I always kind of refer to claims data, right? That's your credit history. So I didn't know what to do. I mean, that's a big group to position without data. It's like, what are your options there? So knowing they are kind of all over the country, I went to their finance director and I said, look, we got to get you out of California. Because while no Blues are great about being forthcoming with data, this is the worst. This is the worst place you could be. I was like, can we make you cite us somewhere else? Is that possible? Do you have multiple offices as well as the employees being all over the country? And she's like, actually, we already moved to Texas. We just haven't closed down California. So we've already got most of our insurer people.
That was the best news ever, actually.
Yeah. So
that's the one actually that worked in our favor in this whole story, by the way. The only one.
We didn't know about it. They hadn't really told us. They hadn't transitioned or changed, their LLCs and their addresses on everything. And I was like, perfect. So we went to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, and they actually gave us a proposal. And it's this weird thing when you're working with Blues in different states where they actually probably weren't supposed to do that. They probably weren't supposed to release that initial proposal, but they did. We got it. It was really good. I think it's actually on the next slide.
Yeah, let's hop to that. So this is now the renewal.
Yeah. So end of the first year, with that captive, and they're trying to, can you go back one?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So end of that first year, and the no data, renewal in California is 11%. So that's where I was like, I don't even know what we can do. So it was kind of a Hail Mary with the situs. It worked out. Mm-hmm. So we get our quote with Texas, and that was -20. So +11 to -20. And it's because the only person that had the data was Blue Cross. So internally, Texas to California, they could see that data, and we could use that for their claims experience and for this proposal. But we couldn't do that with any other carrier. The group didn't have access to it. So really fortunate outcome. So -20 on current, but it was actually -31 if we're looking at the proposed renewal. So huge win to start. I'm super excited. We start to go into placement, and California shuts it down. And basically the situation is California has to agree to release the group from the state.
Yeah.
Texas can't just write.
And remember, they're the largest portion of that PEO risk pool, and they are not letting go.
So I call every legacy broker that I know, just, the type that is tighter with Blue Cross than they are with their clients. So I'm trying to get the inside track, so tell me about this. How does this work? What's the process? Every one of them is no chance you will get that. 0 chance you'll place that in Texas. It's not going to happen. Forget about it. So I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Still gonna do it. Hold on.
Yeah, so I keep kind of plowing on ahead, and what we're doing is we're presenting to California all the paperwork that's changing, because they had legitimately moved. But currently their website, their LLC, all that stuff is still pointing California. So we start changing all of that to their new legitimate address. And we're showing that one by one, right? And we're like, guys, here's their new LLC paperwork. Here's their new website. The website's done. Here's where their employees are. Here's their office. Look at the photos. Like we're doing everything. And like the one last thing they're holding on to is like Dun & Bradstreet is still saying that they're in California.
Yeah.
I was like, that's ridiculous. We change it. It's Dun & Bradstreet said it's going to take a week. I don't have a week to mess around with you. And like 2 weeks of this nonsense. And finally I got to a point, I was like, guys, I'm really concerned about your license and your job that you keep trying to represent this group as California so you can sell it when they are telling you and providing you all data to prove that they are in Texas. Like that's fraud, buddy. Like that's all it is. So they didn't say anything else, but they released it. So
We'll take it, right? Yeah.
that was a win.
Take-
Honestly, I don't know what other options we could have had to position that year coming with no data and over 400 employees.
It was best case scenario for sure. And you won't hear that come out of our mouth often with regards to a carrier.
Well, and I think we were in Puerto Rico, like planning the wedding or something.
Oh, yes. We were doing that.
That was fun.
So Connie inherited Ethos. Connie inherited the plan, right? But Connie, I'm curious to hear from you what your typical experience with renewals and brokers was like before you started with Wynden.
Mid-year reviews and open enrollment. And if, the president might have gotten a bill that he thought the insurance should have paid, maybe they would have picked up the phone then.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then tell me a little bit, because we're about to talk how we're transitioning from fully funded to a more custom self-funded healthcare plan. What was your thoughts on self-funding? Okay.
No.
Tell me more.
Well, at a prior employer, they had talked about, maybe we should go self-funding. I was like, I will quit.
Nice.
Because, it was scary. You don't know the internal benefits committee there probably wouldn't have understood the breaks between you have to make decisions based on details and not people.
Right.
And I was scared about that. And actually, when I interviewed, because I did start with Wynden the week y'all were doing open enrollment for this plan, I'd obviously been interviewing before that, and I asked, do you have a self-funded plan or a fully insured plan? Like, no, it's self-funded. I'm like, okay. And then I walk in, I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Okay.
Hair on fire. No, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit then. One other thing happened, actually. We implement this, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, and Connie just starts, we're like, sweet, okay, it feels pretty much the same. It's still a carrier plan, right? For employees, all is good. And then a Supreme Court decision happens. Mm-hmm. One thing, it was the Dobbs, if anyone's familiar, the Dobbs Supreme Court case, which basically said states can decide what they want to do for abortions and that type of care. It's no longer a federal mandate. So Wynden is an incredibly progressive company, right? They're out of California. It's a lot of young nurses, a very young leadership team who are very pro all of your choices, and anything else you have to say, we will listen. So all of a sudden, Connie's getting hammered with questions and emails, and why are we in Texas now? Tell us about that situation.
I can't, my choice, my body, all the things, everybody, even those that can't physically have children had something to say about it. It was, everybody had an opinion, and we had to, every time it came up, we had to talk about it. I think by like the 15th time, I say, if I have to have one more conversation about an abortion, I'm going to just
crack out. And we were trying everything. We were looking for any vendors that would do this. And ultimately, you ended up with a travel type policy. But how many people actually utilized it?
No, none.
Zero. So it goes to show you, right, a lot of like the uproar. And Christina talks a lot about good disruption. We hear that a lot. A lot of the times, these conversations are being had for problems that never actually happen. But you need to respect that culture and respect those employees and have those conversations. So I think you did an amazing job navigating that. All right, let's keep going. So Patrick, can you walk us through the evolution of going from that fully funded to, because you joined at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of the time where I started working on the case. And so put things into perspective. So we were with Anthem 1 year, switched to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, fully insured in 2022. And then 2023, working on the renewal, and we get a renewal increase from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas at around almost 17%, so 16.5%. And this time we're getting a little bit of data though. So when we switched to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, we made sure to get a reporting package ahead of time to understand, hey, are we just moving to move? Are we going to get some insight into the data? And so we were able to get a decent enough reporting package where we could understand what's going on behind the scenes, not just, hey, the group is running well or running bad. And so we were able to see that there was a lot of RX spend and a lot of opportunity there, as we typically see when we have a case with the Blues and they've got Prime Therapeutics or Express Scripts in there, whoever. And we had a PMPM cost on the RX of about $122 per member per month. And we did an RX analysis and saw that, hey, we can get this down to about $62 PMPM with a separate PBM in there. Went to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas and said, hey, I know we got the 17% renewal increase, but we need to be able to swap out this PBM. We've got a lot of savings on the table that will help drive this down. And I think we had 496 insured at the time. They're like, well, you need 500. It's not that long. So we eventually actually got them to agree to carve out the PBM, but you could only choose CVS Caremark, Shreds, Prime Therapeutics, or Optum. So
move left or right. Yeah. It's not forward.
Yep. Yeah. No real benefits of doing that. So working with them, we said we were looking, what other options do we have? Let's see if we can take this to the self-funded route and see if there's any opportunity there. Group takes on a little bit more risk, and maybe we had opportunities for more savings on that side. And that ASO proposal comes down from Blue Cross, minus 20%. Perfect. So that is the route that's decided to go, and then we move on to the next year, and that's where we get to that turning point in 2024. So this is kind of that catalyst that moved us towards that next step in that 5-year plan, where we get that initial sticker shock renewal increase, 42.4%. And this was important because at the time, Wynden Stark is going through an acquisition of another company that's quite similar in size, and they were on a Blue Cross plan, fully insured at the time as well. We were able to get that negotiated down on the ASO plan to 16% overall renewal increase. But
talk about that. How did you? Because I remember being like, my team's awesome when this happened, because you got creative, you and Megan. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So I think it really just came down to, now that we have this data, we have all this leverage that we can use against them. So it's like, hey, you're saying 42.4%. You're keeping all the rebates here. You're not crediting anything here. And then we know that there isn't that much risk on the plan. And they're complaining, oh, well, we don't know about this acquisition group. And we provide them all the data for that. But that was really the kind of trajectory to get them down. And it wasn't just like from 42 to 16. It was like 5 different battles. So it was like 42.4 to 35 to 30 to 24 to 18 to 16. And it's just like beating them down, getting them data, and getting them data to do that. And so not letting up on that side, but also on the other side of things, we're working other options out for them. Let's see what else is in the marketplace that we can actually implement all these strategies that we talked about here, right? So let's get our own PBM in place. Let's put in a good stop loss contract, and let's unbundle this. And so that became that kind of catalyst that brought us to that point. And so we knew we had a huge amount of pharmacy savings on the board. About 30% of their total spend was going to RX, and we could cut that in half. So there's a huge amount there. And that's what it ultimately came down to. So we took that fiduciary leap where we said, okay, we're going to unbundle this, put in an independent TPA, and then we're going to implement our own PBM stop loss contracts and get everything going there. And the result in that was $600,000 in savings in year 1.
Connie, how did you feel at the time when we were going to go from this like pretty boxed up Blue Cross plan to your worst nightmare? How did you feel about all that?
I was hesitant, not knowing you guys at all, not, walking into something that was different than what I was told. I was hesitant for sure.
And I mean, looking back, right? What's the saying? When you look back, hindsight of 2020. How do you feel now about it?
Riding the waves.
Yeah, baby. Was it harder or worse or better than you expected in any way?
Oh, totally better than I expected, because you guys are such a partner in this. Like, this is all Ethos, right? This is my group, but this is Ethos.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because to me, it's the opposite. It's like we can do and design the most innovative thing in the world, but it takes employers to say yes. It takes HR directors that are willing to go to their benefits committees and say, hey, we have something a little different this year. This is how it works, and have some courage. But thank you for that. So this is what the plan looks like today. Megan, can you walk us through how we've set this up and the vendor stack?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Patrick mentioned, we ended up moving to that completely unbundled thing. So we have an independent TPA. We've got that fiduciary PBM in place. We do have them on the Cigna network because, again, with their population being so spread out and all that stuff, and kind of a lot of, Connie said, transitioning on and off, it's just kind of that ease, it puts employees' minds at ease, things like that, when they have kind of that name that they recognize for their network. And then we've also, put a lot of work into that stop loss, vendor, making sure those contracts are airtight, and really working to the benefit of the group. So, those are all the pieces, right, that we were able to put into place for Wynden Stark. But what ties all that together is, how does this play into for the members?
Exactly.
So, that's the big thing. And that's why a lot of times employers are so nervous about, a self-funded plan, not just the risk that they might be, inheriting or whatever, but how is this going to impact my employees, and what kind of emails am I going to start getting?
Right.
Because of this.
So Connie, what, in your opinion, with what Megan just said, how do you feel like the member experience has been since we've unbundled?
I'm not sure that the employees really realize any of this has happened.
Right.
They see that Cigna logo on their card. They think they have Cigna insurance. And so I think the thing that they do come to us about is, Cigna says I don't have any coverage. I was like, because you don't with Cigna. Have Lucent, read your card. Right. It's the whole, employees don't know what their benefits are. Right. They don't know how to use them. They don't know how to, until they're standing in the doctor's office and the doctor's saying, who is this? And the doctor's trying to call Cigna.
Right.
And Cigna's like, I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just education.
And let's go dive a little bit deeper on member experience with you, Megan, and then Connie, will come back to you. Megan, what are some of the things you and your team are doing to enhance the member experience and help them bridge those gaps? Because I always talk about the most important part when you go self-funded is knowing where these areas of friction are going to happen for the members and interjecting yourself in at least a step, hopefully two, before that point of friction. That is the game changer. And I know that, this conference there's a lot of people talking about $1 million savings and this, and we're going to do the same thing here in a couple minutes, like millions of dollars of savings. That's so great. But nobody cares if your members think the plan sucks. So talk me through what you and your team do, and then maybe share a story.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is the communication. And that is the biggest way, communication and education, that you can help alleviate any of the friction that is going to happen with these transitions. So I think, as an example, we recorded a video the first year of your new ID card. And one of the things we stressed in it is there's a big red box on your ID card, and it says, have your provider call. If your provider does not call that number in that big red box and says you don't have coverage, they're wrong. Don't leave. Make them call. Yeah. And so just things like that. And we, this population, this demographic, we try to keep things fun. A lot of our text messages that go out are memes and things like that. So our sample ID card was Michael Scott. So, a little office humor there. But, we really stress the communication. We have a texting platform that we use. We send out.
Talk a little bit about the texting and like the bilateral nature of that, because when employees are having that issue, right? Like, let's say the provider's like, I don't see this red box. I'm not calling this number. Mm-hmm. How does the texting work?
So it is bidirectional. So the employees can reach directly out to us, someone on our team, and they have been told, and they know that is actually someone on our team. This is not going to some stranger in some, I don't know, Timbuktu or something like that. It's someone here that they know that they can call and talk to, and know it's going to be the same person every time. As a matter of fact, I think most of the times it's just me. It just says Megan. So. And so, if they're having problems, hey, my doctor says they don't accept this. What's your doctor's name? Let me call them. You know, like I'll get on the phone with them right now and explain this to them. That's a big thing that we do. You know, we have that kind of just relationship with the employees at this point. You know, I've told you this story where there's one executive who has my personal cell phone number, and I was getting my nails done on Memorial Day, and I got a text. Hey, they're saying this person isn't covered for my son. And I texted Chelsea. I said, Chelsea, I'm getting my nails done right now. Can you look into this? You know, but it's, you know, it's like, it's on Memorial Day. You know, we don't really, you know, and Connie's texts me on weekends, you know, like it's really important to us because that's the key, is if you can have the support there that, you know, and Lucent is great as well. Like their TPA has a lot of support as well. But my mantra is that I stand by is I don't ever want anybody to have to call 1-800 number. They should always be able to call us, you know, and I think that's the big key to the member experience, is if they feel like they have someone that they can consistently reach out to. I have members on Cobra still. They're not employed by Wynden anymore, and they still text me with questions and, you know, things like that. So when they have an advocate in their corner, it's a lot less scary.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I was going to say, I think our employees think Mickey and Megan are
Wynden employees.
We actually get that a lot from a lot of us clients. They think that we're employees of their company. So
that is hilarious. Well, I'm really glad to hear that the employees feel that way. That's hilarious.
Well, yes, they name drop them to me. I'll just call Mickey. Well, okay.
Mickey's my girl for claims. Woo. Okay, so Donovan, do you want to take us through this one, or Patrick?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of that point where we had that 42.4% renewal increase ASO, and we ended up unbundling and getting down to a minus 1.3 from current. So saving about 17% over that renewal is kind of where that landed us for that first year of the custom unbundled plans.
Whew. So every single year we've had something happen, but every single year we've been able to deliver savings, which has been really, really cool. And I only say that because if you work in this market, even if you're doing the most innovative self-funded health plans in the world, like it still can be volatile, right? Like you're still seeing stop loss increases. So something like this is just super exciting. But what's interesting is we had to fight for the case twice in 1 year. Donovan, Patrick, you want to lead us down that road?
Yeah, never get comfortable, guys, right? Like, obviously, like the plan's performing, no complaints there. The team is performing and taking care of everybody.
Literally, probably like the happiest client.
Yeah.
And then this happens.
Right. So they're going through some M&A activity, and naturally, like the company was of a similar size. So the responsible thing for them to do as a company is decide, okay, which broker gets to keep the job and which one gets fired, right? So we're looking at two different populations. The incoming company's population is actually pretty static. They're mainly in the same state. And then we have the Wynden plan, which has been volatile, and we're trying to like compare costs and also like process and the plan moving forward for this new larger company. So I got to take that on, which was awesome. It was really fun because I was basically put on a call with the other broker like last minute, so she wouldn't know and wasn't prepared for it. So she was a vice president. I won't say the brokerage, but it rhymes with Schmaliger. So she's on the call and she's kind of going through this, and it was, you know, she's just throwing out unsubstantiated, vague BS.
Like what?
Of the PPO reimbursement rates are better with United Healthcare. I was like, I will agree with you if you can provide me with one single piece of substantiated data. It can even be from United. Like anything that you have to prove that would be great, because we all know PPOs don't release that. They don't. They just say it, but they can't prove it because they're never going to release their rates. And if it is better for, you know, let's say a child delivery, it'll be worse for a heart surgery, right? Like they'd have to compare everything across the board. There's just no truth to it. She's throwing out, you can't do plan mirroring. Why not? Talking about what state I would use the carrier rep as if the group cares. and that affects them at all. Like, because we were based out of Florida and she's in that state. So just a bunch of unsubstantiated garbage. It was a lot of fun. What did you think of the call?
I wish I had popcorn at the point, because watching your face as she was talking and then watch you, shut her down on every point that she made was the best day ever. Because there was no question for me which broker we should keep, right? But we have to go through the day.
It was a lot, and I was sitting there biting my tongue, and I'm letting it degrade.
Chelsea the whole time. Yeah, he is eating her lunch.
The playbook is so standard that, like, I knew what was coming. I knew there was no there. There was no plan. There was nothing better. So I would literally just, I knew where she was going with the point. And I would let her dig her own grave, and then I would just say one sentence and prove there's nothing.
Can we take a moment, though, like how sad that is that you knew what the playbook was, because there's so much misinformation out there. Like, we know exactly, oh, you're not large enough to self-fund. Oh, the member disruption is going to be absolutely terrible. The PPO discounts are much better over here. Like, the garbage that's perpetuated, it's like, it's so well known at this point that it's actually easy to counter. It's very interesting.
Yep. So that went well. We got to keep the group.
Yay! Long story short.
Yeah. And the other positive, we doubled the population. So that was good as well. So.
Well, and then I don't think we touched a lot on this, but the unknown risk of the merger. How did you guys work through that with marketing? Because not a lot of stop loss is going to be like, yeah, sweet, let me take on that fully insured population with no idea what's going on.
Yep. So using AI underwriting has been a big help. So usually Gradient AI is the report that we'll use to supplement when we're coming off fully insured or don't have great access to data. We were able to get some data, but having that as like a backup source helped us identify if there were any other unknown risks that wasn't showing up in the data that we were receiving. So I think when you're working with your different stop loss partners, making sure you're combing through that to see if there's anything else that you can provide, as much data that you can provide to underwriting, and not just like, here's the proposal and this is what we want, is giving them the story behind the scenes of what's happening. And if you know anything going on for any case management, if you're being forthcoming with underwriting on that stuff and working with them through that and letting them know the plan of action for this high claimant, and you can usually work with them to get a more favorable pricing on that. So,
Donovan, Patrick, any comments on this one?
I think it just shows this is kind of the first renewal unbundled and self-funded. You can see much more level. We were able to control a lot of the costs on the pharmacy side. The medical ran pretty well in comparison to, although being on a network, it's still running fairly decent there. We do have case management in place, and we're making sure that that's being monitored and that's being utilized as well. And then we have an international pharmacy program in place too, which has
go to that
in a ton of savings, which will jump into kind of the difference there. But
there we go.
We were able to go from kind of this evolution that you had. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. There you go.
And so this is kind of the results that we saw from that international sourcing. So on just 5 drugs in 1 year, $372,000. Yep. So what was,
I was just say, from the members' experience side, there's a little hesitation when they first hear about it, but when you tell them, because this then is covered at no cost to the employee, then the savings are enough to the employer that it justifies, hey, you don't need to pay for this now.
Right.
So when you tell them, hey, I can get a 3-month supply of a medication that normally is going to cost me, 50% coinsurance or something, no, hey, they'll jump on that, And so we get, and the PBM that we're using is very good about proactively reaching out to employees, and so there's not a lot of legwork that even goes into it from the employer side or even from our side, because we've put all that into place. But the member feedback is great, and then the savings speak for themselves. So,
and I think kind of to that point, as soon as a few members start utilizing these programs and they start talking to other people that are on the plan, it becomes more of a positive kind of reinforcement that happens throughout the company. And then just having about, I think, 13, 14 people utilizing the international pharmacy on specialty meds was saving like $650,000 a year across the board.
Right. Connie, actually, let's go to the spousal HRA, because this is something we just did this past year. Megan, will you talk us through how this works?
Yeah. So basically, what it is employees who are currently on Wynden's plan, if they were currently on Wynden's plan, we said, hey guys, look, we're going to say to you, if you come off of Wynden's plan and move on to your spouse's employer plan, we're going to give you $7,000, reimburse $7,000 of your healthcare expenses, just for not being on our plan anymore. So what we've done there is, because we have at this point, I believe 12 enrolled households, that's households. So that's not members, total members. I think total members, we have 30 to 35 each month. And so you take all of those, that's each one times your spec there, right? So which
is 95,000.
Exactly. So in this case, on average we've removed almost $2.8 million in risk. And claims per household so far on the plan for, this is newer to us, but so far this year, is just over $1,000.
Wow.
So your fixed cost savings, which is, those admin fees, things like that, $18,000 in savings, plus that's huge risk removed. Mm-hmm. And then you've only put out $1,000 per household that's enrolled.
Yeah.
So it's a newer thing, right, for Wynden. And I think we're seeing some great results from it. And, I don't think we've had any negative feedback or anything like that. So
any comments, Connie, on the HRA?
I was walking a guy through who's in our finance team, and he's got married and moving to his spouse's plan. And so he was, telling me how much money he was going to save Wynden by not being.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, buddy. And so I was walking him through the portal to drop his insurance. And then so this slide pops up. Oh, and he's like, oh, wait a minute. What? Y'all are going to give me $7,000? I was like, well, we're not going to give you $7,000, but we'll reimburse it. And he's like, this is amazing. Hold on. So you're actually going to pay me to not be on your plan? Yep.
Yes, sir. That's pretty well. Thank you.
Push the button. Let's wrap this up.
I love it. So we're getting right to the end where we're going to show you the savings over just the last 2 years. But before we do that, Megan, there's a really interesting story. Actually, Mickey helped this member. I think you should share it because it kind of brings the whole picture together.
Yeah. So I think, again, I think this story speaks to not just the member experience, but also, how invested the employer is as well. We had an employee who reached out to us who was, I think this is the story that you wanted me to share. So we had an employee who reached out to us. She just called to ask, when are my benefits going to end when I quit? I was just diagnosed with cancer, so I need to quit my job. And Mickey was the one who she happened to answer the call, and she said, well, let me just see what benefits you have really quick. And she pulls this member up, and this poor woman who's just been diagnosed with cancer pulls this member up, and she says, honey, you have short-term disability. You don't need to quit your job. You can go out on disability. And she says, and you also have a critical illness policy.
With a cancer rider.
Yes. So this woman, not only did she not have to quit her job, got paid disability to take time off of work for her treatments, and got $20,000 in her critical illness
and
benefit.
Kept her health care.
And she kept her health care.
Or when she went through a cancer treatment.
Exactly. So, and all just because, she made the call not to a 1-800 number.
Right.
Because if she just called, the carrier, they would say, oh, well, your benefits will end this date, or whatever. She called and asked the question, and someone cared enough to look into it a little bit,
Yeah.
And that is what makes such a difference, and why, it's so important as the employer to make sure that you can figure out, and that's what Wynden does such a good job of, how to communicate to employees who your advocates are and how to best utilize your benefits. Because Connie, and you've mentioned this before, you said earlier, nobody knows what benefits they have. Yeah.
I was the doctor, and I needed to he was giving me generic drugs. I said, oh, we should use Go-Go Med. And he's like, well, what is that? And then he said, do you need a prescription, or do I send it somewhere? And I'm like, oh, I should probably know the answer, but I don't know. And so he, all the doctors have laptops now. And so he was looking up pharmacies in Go-Go Med. I guess he has another patient that actually used them. So he was able to send it right to Go-Go Med. And I was like, oh, that's how that works.
And how much did you pay for that?
$1.
One whole $1.
All right, for clarification.
And that's only because I'm on a high deductible plan.
Yeah.
So Donovan or Patrick, will one of you take us through these savings?
Yeah. So this is kind of what you look at when you're looking at that transition from the ASO self-funded plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield and what's transpired over the past 2 years and the savings around that. So by kind of taking control of the health plan and not offloading it and transferring everything over to Blue Cross and taking control of how we price claims, how we price pharmacy, all the different programs in there, you can see if we were to stay with Blue Cross and what that trend would have looked like and accepting that initial renewal and then trending that up 8% for the following year, you can see the savings from our fiduciary strategy, which puts Wynden Stark and Connie in the driver's seat versus the carrier's strategy. And so significant savings on a PM basis. And when you look at that over the 2 years, $2.2 million in that first year, about $1.5 million in that second year, $3.7 million in just 2 years. And that's something that CFOs love, that's something that HR loves, employees love, because they're not seeing these huge premium increases in their paycheck.
Yeah, love it.
I just slide a couple back that we skipped past.
This one?
More.
It's frozen.
Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Still stuck there?
This one?
No, back.
It's up there. It says situation ethos gets benchmarked again.
Oh, there it is. It's just not down here. Okay. So 2024, we got benchmarked, and 2025, it happens again.
After 4 years of consecutive savings, which is fine. We honestly love it. It's a good exercise.
So again, don't be caught slipping or lacking.
Ever.
Come for your job. So 2025, more M&A activity going on. This one I was a little bit more concerned about because it was the private equities preferred broker partner, rhymes with schmarsh. And this was a little bit different. We didn't get all on a call together, but what they did is they sent basically all of our data and Wynden's historical and their performance and our plan design and all that kind of stuff. And they sent it and gave it to them for like a week or two to look over, and then they met with them and gathered their thoughts. And what the outcome was is they had 0 holes to poke into our strategy, compliance, things done wrong. They had 0 suggestions for improvement or things they would do better. They just said, give it to us and next year we'll do something, right? So we were once again able to defeat that, which was great.
I think one of the takeaways for advisors or brokers in the room is that, like, not only is it, oh, you might get benchmarked, it's how can I add value every single year, even if it's the same plan design, even if it's the same strategy and they're going to renew as is. Can you tighten up the contract language? Can you put in a fiduciary framework for them to, have better liability protections under ERISA? Like, what can I do to actually add value this year, even if it's not huge savings, right? So let's get to the end here. Connie, last question for you would be, you look at these 5 years that we've all worked together. What has been maybe a highlight for you or challenging, like anything you want to share?
Every day at the office is challenging. It's when I say I ride the wave, we are riding the wave. GQR is, because of what we do, we, staff, like we hired 340 nurses 2 weekends ago to work a strike, and, then they're going to go away. So it's constantly changing, constantly moving on. Megan was doing open enrollment meetings last year, and we didn't even have rates yet.
So that was because the benefits committee hadn't decided on contributions, by the way.
Yeah, it was totally us, not you guys. And so it's just every day is a new day.
Yeah.
And it's not what you're going to expect. And so having you guys as a partner is probably the best thing that, like, when I leave, I'm going to want to take you with me.
Yay.
That's the plan. We'll stay here too, and it's very warm.
Y'all stay there. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Connie, I want to thank you so much for just riding the wave, figuring it out as you go, being scared of self-funding, learning about it, now implementing quite an innovative plan. There's a lot of things we didn't talk about today as well within the program, the fiduciary governance process. There's the compliance. There's a whole host of things we didn't get to speak on. But you were doing an absolutely incredible job managing it, managing your unique and needy population that I love dearly. Team, you guys are also doing fantastic. Great job.